Welcome to Thursday's edition of, let's see, what should I call it? The Lunch Break, the Houston Roundball Review Takeover. I am KG Chris Gardner, owner of the Houston Roundball Review. Let's get into it, talk some hoops. Mostly college today, including women's basketball. Big news expected to happen this evening. Iowa's Caitlin Clark, barring some unforeseen circumstance, will surpass Kelsey Plum, become the leading scorer in women's college basketball, most career points. She also has 1,000 assists, 3,000 points, 1,000 assists. So she's more than just a scorer. But into it. Going to talk about that earlier. And that game's going to air on Peacock. Yes, not the Big Ten Network, not ESPN, not Fox Sports, not FS1, FS2, on Peacock. So if you want to see history in the making this evening, you have to have Peacock. I'm not sure if it's the paid tier. I don't know, whatever, but it's on Peacock, whatever. We're going to talk some basketball, some Coogs, a little bit of the Rockets, but more Rockets tonight later on, probably 9 o'clock Central Time on the next edition of Let's Talk Houston Rockets. Do that later on tonight. But this hour, these 55 minutes or so, college hoops, men's and women's. Big game this Saturday at Fertitta Center. High noon between the Houston Cougars, talking men's hoops right now. Of course, high noon. Game's on CBS. If you don't have a ticket, if you're not one of the fortunate ones who have a ticket to the showdown between the Cougs and those people in burnt orange, also known as the Texas Longhorns. But yes, Cougs, Longhorns, high noon this Saturday, Fertitta Center. There are, I know of at least one UH alumni function starting 9 o'clock Saturday morning that alums can attend to get hyped up and network and enjoy some libations, etc. before the game. I got that via email, so kudos for sending that out to the alums. But yes, Cougs, men's hoops against the Longhorns, high noon on CBS. Before that game, 11:30 Central Time, also on CBS, the NCAA Men's Basketball Committee will announce the top 16 seeds for men's hoops. Miss Wanda, how are you doing? Thank you for chiming in. Thank you, as always, for your support. Thank you for purchasing your Houston Roundball Review hoodie, cap, shirt, your FTS shirt as well. I got me my Roundball Review mug. Click on that shop button as you're watching on the Houston Roundball Review on YouTube, as you can watch this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover on Facebook, YouTube, Musk, Fire TV, and of course on Roku via Bs3 Network. And the crew, Ben and the crew, did a great job last week on Radio Row in Vegas for the NFL's big game. Hope you had a chance to watch all that content they provided on Bs3 TV. If you have a Roku streaming device, just download Bs3 TV. If you don't, go to bs3network.com or bs3tvlive.com. But touching on again, 11:30 a.m. Saturday, the men's basketball committee will unveil their top 16 seeds projected as of right now. You know, the men's tournament, women's tournament, Selection Sunday will be in mid-March. But the men's committee will announce their top 16 tonight. The women's hoops committee, Division 1, will have two. This will be the first one tonight. Two top 16 reveal shows in February. First one tonight, with the second one on Leap Day. Both 30-minute shows will air on ESPN2. The reveals will also include committee reason assignments for all 16 seeds. The top 16 reveal on tonight will lead into the South Carolina-Tennessee matchup, which will probably be a beatdown in favor of South Carolina. But that game will tip off at 6 o'clock Central on ESPN. On February 29th, Virginia Tech and Notre Dame should be a much better, more competitive matchup. Will face off on ESPN, also at 6 o'clock Central. Following that reveal, the women's 68-team championship bracket will be announced during the NCAA Women's Basketball Selection Show on Sunday, March 17th at 7 p.m. on ESPN. The first 4 opening round games of the women's tournament will take place March 20th and 21st, and will again be conducted on the campuses of 4 of the teams seeded in the top 16. So it's a little different than the men's tournament, just a little bit. Men's first 4 take place neutral site in Dayton. First and second round games will take place March 22nd through 24th on the campuses of the top 16 seeds. Another difference between the men and women's tournament. Men's tournament, neutral site. Women's tournament, top 16 get the host. That's why it's so important to be a top 16 seed in women's hoops. Regional play in Albany, New York, and Portland will take place March 29th through April 1st, which with each site hosting 2, I'm still not a fan of this, 2 regional semifinal games March 29th and 2 on March 30th. In addition, each site will host a regional championship game March 31st and 1 on April 1st. The 2024 NCAA Women's Final Four will be played April 5th and 7th in Cleveland, Willie Gibson in Cleveland at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. And yes, the Houston Roundball Review has been approved with a credential to cover and attend the Women's Final Four already. Yes, already. Miss Wanda, Tony, how are you doing? Tony M, in case you missed it. We're going to talk your Rockets, Tony. Your Rockets later on tonight, 9 o'clock Central Time on YouTube, Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel, to discuss your Rockets and what happened last night in Memphis at FedEx Forum. I did not watch the game. I was at Fertitta Center watching the Houston Cougars women's team play the Texas Longhorns. Coogs didn't get blown out, but they didn't win either. The Longhorns won 82-66. But later on tonight, 9 o'clock, let's talk Houston Rockets about Tony M's favorite player, Jalen Green, and, of course, Cam Whitmore. Miss Wanda, Tony M, how should I go ahead and do this? I'm going to discuss some more women's hoops news. I'm going to tie it all together with the men's hoops action as well. But I got I say a bone to pick, but just during this edition of Throwback Thursday on the lunch break, also known as the Houston Roundball Review Takeover, I'm going to get some stuff off my chest. So bear with me. Here we go. Earlier Thursday, this was announced. Women's Champions Classic to launch on Fox later this year, featuring, it should be just UConn, Tennessee, Iowa, and Louisville. It's the inaugural Women's Champions Classic. It will feature UConn, Tennessee, Iowa, Louisville, squaring off in a primetime double hitter on Fox Saturday, December 7th at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Initial plans call for an annual event featuring UConn, the most successful women's basketball program in the nation. How about that pub right there for UConn? In an early season showcase that will include a rotation of some of the most storied college programs. Miss Wanda says she's scared based on what I said about getting something off my chest. Not to you, Miss Wanda, but maybe to a program that we both follow and love and support. But I continue. Interest, here's a quote from the co-CEO of HS&E. Interest in women's sports continues to experience exponential growth, and basketball is leading the way with viewership and attendance records continually being set. This moment feels like the right time to launch the Women's Champions Classic. I'm going to stop right there. We'll go back to the beginning part of it. And I really hope, would appreciate the Houston Cougars administration. I won't name names, but you know who they are. Here's a quote again. Interest in women's sports continues to experience exponential growth, and basketball is leading the way with viewership and attendance records continually being set. Interest in women's basketball continuing to grow exponentially. Exponentially. Last night, the Houston Cougars women's team fell to 12-12 overall, 3-10 in the Big 12. First year in the Big 12. Attendance was decent for Houston Cougars women's basketball. It's about 1,800. 1,610 was the announced attendance. Brother Gibson, thank you very much for chiming in on Facebook. Brother Gibson, you're in Ohio, Big Ten country. Type in, comment in the comments, the attendance for Iowa, Ohio State women's basketball. Tonight, Iowa faces Michigan, I believe. Yes, Michigan. In the game that Caitlin Clark will surpass Kelsey Plum for most points in NCAA Division I basketball. Tony M., Miss Wanda, according to colleague Willie Gibson, Iowa, Ohio State, women's basketball, 19,000. Once again, 19,000. The attendance for the Cougars Longhorns game, women's game, Wednesday night, 1,610. And honestly, that's a decent crowd for a Houston Cougars women's basketball game. Rice Owls women's basketball thumped East Carolina last night inside Rice's Tudor Fieldhouse. Attendance was not, I'm sure, I haven't checked the number, but was not, I know for certain it was not 19,000. I'm very sure it was not 1,610. Rice women are 9-4 in the American, 15-9 overall. If you add up, Ben, how you doing? Thank you for chiming in. Much love and appreciation for allowing me this platform, a part of the Bs3 network, and being part of this Bs3 family. Great work to everybody in the family last week on Radio Row. If you add up Rice women's basketball home attendance this season, it doesn't get to 19,000. So when I go back to this announcement regarding the inaugural Women's Champions Classic, and it says growth in women's sports is growing exponentially and basketball is leading the way. Sure as hell ain't doing it here in Houston, Texas. Not even close. Hasn't been that way for years, if ever. The last time the city of Houston rallied behind women's basketball was not for college, was for the pros. And I'm referring to the Houston Comets when they were winning championships, 4-time champions, and averaging 11, 12, 13,000 per home game. Probably can't see this, but I went through and found this is a little dusty. But here is a Houston Comets champions pin, because it says on here, 5-year charter member, 1997 to 2001. Why? Because in addition to covering the team, the first few years, I was a season ticket holder for the Houston Comets. So when I go back and say, when I say now, and I said then, my support for women's basketball runs deep. I put my money where my mouth is. I invest my time, my gas in my car, my money, what little I have now, in covering women's basketball. The passion I still have for women's basketball, hell, it seems like it's endless because there are many times I wonder why I still do it. Coach Vic Schaefer, Longhorns coach, with last night's win over Houston, that was his 400th career victory collegiately. 19th season, Coach Vic, 400th win. Record of 400 wins, 202 losses. Part of the end of his post-game press conference, he thanked the media for us for covering women's basketball. There's three of us, media, were covering the game. 3 in the room, 3. One was with AP. One was my colleague, the Fifth Ward Wildcat, Jerry Lee Woodley Jr., and myself, of course. I don't blame other media for not covering women's basketball, not covering the Cougars. There's no interest in it from the public here in Houston. So there's not a market for it. Unless there is a Caitlin Clark somewhere in this area or a Caitlin Clark type revolution comes to Houston or comes to Rice and sparks interest in the fans, heck, in the administration to care about women's basketball, women's college basketball. You're never going to see thousands of fans attending college games for women's hoops here in Houston. And I've had folks, fans of women's basketball, colleagues, friends. Man, Chris, it'd be great if the WNBA came back to town. Why won't Tillman do it? Why won't Tillman buy a franchise? Is there still interest in women's basketball on the pro level here in Houston? I'm not even sure that's the case. When the Comets stopped winning championships, the attendance number started going down from 13, 12 to 10, 9, 8, 7,000. But even 7,000, Tony M., I'm not great at math. I'm good at math, not great at math. But even 7,000 is more than 1,610. So the explosion of interest in women's basketball, women's college basketball, that's sweeping across the country. As Willie Gibson and I have also said and mentioned, the Caitlin Clark economy, the Caitlin Clark effect is taking over parts of the country. It ain't here in Houston, Texas. I'm not sure it will ever be here in Houston, Texas, if I'll be around to see it. But the administration, I'm tied it all together. Put the bow on it before I talk hoops, men's hoops. Brother Gibson, Miss Wanda, Tony M., Chris Pezman, the vice president of athletics at my alma mater, the University of Houston. Dwana Chiser, the senior woman administrator at my alma mater, the University of Houston. You know I name names here on this show. Come on now. You follow me long enough, you know I'm going to put the names out there. Of course I would. 3-10. Willie Gibson, 3-10. You can say, oh, it's first year in the Big 12. That's right. He's had 2 years to get ready for the talent level of the Big 12. Brother Gibson adds, the Ohio State. I think they're number 2 now in the coaches poll, AP poll. Hosting Nebraska last night. 7,115 to see them play that women's game. 7,000. You add up Rice and UH attendance last night for their games, home games, it's not even half of 7,000. But Coach Hughey talked about recruiting. Willie, I hope you saw the comment. I posted the clip on YouTube, Houston Roundball Review, Instagram, Houston Roundball Review, TikTok, Houston Roundball Review, and of course on Musk, the HR Review. I asked Coach if he, with Texas leaving the Big 12 for the SEC, if he looked at the Longhorns if he could learn from the Longhorns roster how to build Houston's roster. Coach Hughey said, it starts with recruiting. You got to recruit. And then he proceeded to name Longhorn recruits, top 10, top 20, top 50 players on the Texas roster. Cougars have none of those. Top 10, top 20, top 50. None of those. Laila Blair was top 100, I believe, 99, 100. She's now a senior at Houston. Madison Booker, freshman for the Longhorns, one of the best freshmen in the country. 6'1", now playing point guard. I think Madison Booker, top 15, top 20. She's playing point guard because Roy Harmon, one of the best true point guards in the country, who was a top 10 prospect from the Houston area, tore ACL in December in pregame warmups against Jackson State game, out for the season. So Longhorns, without their best player, moved a freshman to point guard. The Longhorns are 23-3, 10-3 in conference. Think about that. Lose your best player at point guard. At point guard, the most important position in basketball. Move a freshman who's not really a point guard. Okay, let me be clear. In Madison Booker, to point guard. Wednesday night, 23 points, 9 for 13 shooting, 7 rebounds, 4 assists, only 2 turnovers. Gianna Gaston, 21 points off the bench for the Longhorns from Pearland. Some folks might as well say that's greater Houston area. All this talent in and around Houston, not playing at Houston. Cougars 3-10 in the Big 12. 3-10 in the Big 12. First year in the Big 12. I don't even want to talk about the net anymore for the Cougars. Let's look at the records. The other newcomers. And yes, Coach Hughey said it starts with recruiting. Miss Wanda, Tony M., he said it last night. It starts with recruiting. Look at the Big 12 women's schedule for this weekend. First up, Oklahoma in first place, 12-1 in conference play. Oklahoma is not the same team that lost to Southern from the SWAC in non-conference. I want to say that game was the last non-conference matchup for Oklahoma. Sooners are now 12-1 in the Big 12, sitting in first place. This weekend going to West Virginia. Mountaineers are 10-3. Those 3 losses are 2 of the top tier teams in the Big 12. But we'll see how they do against Oklahoma. TCU, Brother Gibson. TCU is just beset with injuries. 2 important pieces, 2 important players, starters. TCU only lost twice non-conference, and then injuries hit. They're now 2-11 in conference play. Going to Cincinnati. Let's look at the newcomer. Cincinnati, 4-9 in the Big 12. That's better than 3-10. UCF, another newcomer, is also 3-10, but they beat Houston head-to-head in Orlando in overtime, but still, they did beat Houston. BYU, 5-8 in conference play, the other newcomer. Houston Cougars are staring at being part of the day one of the Big 12 Women's Hoops Tournament, which is for seeds 11, 12, 13, and 14. Right now, Houston Cougars Women's Hoops is the 13th seed, ahead of TCU in 14. Like I said, TCU is just so banged up with injuries. That might be Houston's best shot at winning one of the last 5 games. Cougars go to Stillwater this Saturday at Oklahoma State. Cowgirls 5-8. The Cougs did beat the Cowgirls here in Houston, but road is a whole other animal for the Cougars. So we'll see what happens there. Saying all these things. Willie Gibson, type in the comments for me, Brother Gibson. What season is this for Coach Hughey as head coach of the Houston Cougars? Tony M., I think you know it. Miss Wanda, I know you know it. But type it in. All together now. Type it in. What season is this for Ron Hughey as head coach of the Houston Cougars? Because I think Chris Pezman and the Wanda Tribes must have forgot. Or there is just not enough money to make a change. Willie Gibson is correct. It is 10. This is the 10th season for head coach Ron Hughey. 10. Back at this one more time. The bottom of the Big 12. TCU, injuries, first-year head coach. BYU, second-year head coach. Cincinnati, first-year head coach. UCF, second-year head coach. Ron Hughey, 10th year as head coach at Houston. It starts with recruiting. He said that last night. Post-game, he said that last night. He's been here so long, it has to be financial now. It has to be. That the administration does not have the funds to make a change. If they don't have the funds, that's a sad statement. But if they do have the funds and have not made a change, then what else is the reason for it? Indifference? Is that it? Is it apathy? Because all across the country, women's college basketball is growing in popularity exponentially. Not here in the city of Houston, not at the University of Houston. So what is it? And I'll say this here on this show, on this platform, on this edition of Throwback Thursday, the Houston Roundball Review Takeover, powered by JM&E, streaming live on Roku via Bs3 Network. I don't see Chris Pezman at the women's games. See him at the men's games, but I don't see him at the women's games. Why is that? Like I said, I'm going to say it here on this show today. I'm getting stuff off my chest. Women's team has 5 Big 12 games left. 3 on the road, 2 at home. The 2 home games, Iowa State. Iowa State, led by freshmen. Freshmen have a better record than the Houston Cougars this year. Better head coach, more experienced head coach than Bill Finley, who, I've had friends who had issues with him in the past. He's still a hell of a coach, but led by freshmen. The other home game is against UCF. It's home game, I think that will be senior day for Houston. That could be a chance for the Cougs to win. Could be. UCF in the road game against injury-riddled TCU. That could be it. So 5-13 in Big 12 play. 5-13 possibly. Is that enough to make a change? Does he have to lose all 5 to finish 3-15 to make a change? Losing the first day of the tournament to make a change? What is it going to take? Or is it simply about money? Simply about finances? You just don't have it. Don't have the finances. Well, if you don't have the finances, are you waiting for the Big 12 coffers to make Houston a full share member? What, 2 seasons from now? Is that what it's going to take? The 3rd year if Houston is in the Big 12 as a member, they start receiving a full share. Is that what Houston's waiting on? Because if that's the case, that's 1 more year of Coach Hughey. That's a season 11 for Coach Hughey next season. When Colorado, top 10 ranked Colorado. Utah, top 20 ranked Utah. Arizona, recent Final Four recipient. I think championship game recipient, member. All joining the Big 12. It's not getting any easier. So what is it going to take? Think about it. And I'm just one little voice in the wind. One little voice in the wind. My platform is growing. I'm being recognized by people at Rocket games, at UH basketball games. I won't say more details because we may have something lined up for the future, a positive. But one of my fellow church members has told me he's worn his Houston Roundball Review shirt, and folks have recognized the shirt. Hey, I know that guy. I've seen that shirt. I've seen him on TV or I've seen his show. I like what he does. So my platform is not big right now. Hopefully it will grow larger and larger. But I am one little voice in the wind. Speaking about women's basketball, women's college basketball, and right now specifically the Houston Cougars women's hoops program. Send your questions, your queries, your concerns to Chris Pezman, to Tillman Fertitta, to President Couture, who I don't know when the last time she was at a women's game. If it wasn't senior day or part of a doubleheader with the men. 10 years. 10 years. Brother Gibson, this was a year of adjustments to the new conference. We saw improvements throughout the season. Coach Hughey said at the end, during his press conference last season, when they lost in the title game to East Carolina in the American Athletic Conference Women's Basketball Championship, Coach Hughey said the standard for Houston women's basketball is the NCAA tournament. He said that. You can find the video on my Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. It's on there because I sent Willie Gibson the clip. He commented on it when he saw it. The standard for Houston women's basketball is the NCAA tournament. They're 3-10 in the Big 12 this season. Barring some miracle, barring them winning the Big 12 basketball championship, they're not going to the NCAA tournament this season. But that's the standard that the head coach himself said. Take a break for 90 seconds. You're watching the Houston Roundball Review Takeover, powered by JM&E, streaming live on Facebook, Fire TV, YouTube, Musk, Twitch, and of course, on Roku via the Bs3 network. Watch this clip from Bs3 TV Watch this clip from Bs3 TV, and I'll be back in 90 seconds.
Bs3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.
Welcome back to the Lunch Break, powered by JM&E and also the Bs3 Network. This Throwback Thursday edition is the Houston Roundball Review Takeover of the Lunch Break. I am, of course, KG Chris Gardner, owner of the Houston Roundball Review. If you're watching the show on Roku, you already know this. But if you're not watching it on Roku, you can. Just download Bs3 TV on Roku or go to bs3network.com as well as bs3tvlive.com. I've talked enough about women's basketball for this show. I'll do it more on future shows on this platform as well as on YouTube at Houston Roundball Review. Men's hoops, men's action, winning, successful, nationally relevant. Houston Cougars basketball is on the men's side. So in the last few minutes, got an email. News that Jamal, Shead, and LJ Cryer, Houston's starting backcourt, were named to the Naismith Trophy Player of the Year mid-season team. This is another example of how far the men's basketball program has come. Part of their press release, Houston was one of only 4 schools nationally with multiple players named to the mid-season team. The Cougars joined Purdue, North Carolina, and Kansas. Think about that. Year number 10. There's a number again, 10, for head coach Kelvin Sampson, leading the men's program, his 10th year. His starting backcourt, Jamal, Shead, and LJ Cryer, were named to the Naismith Trophy Player of the Year mid-season team. Only 3 other programs, men's hoops programs, got 2 players on there. Purdue, North Carolina, and Kansas. That's blue blood. How about to say it? That's blue bloods. I don't know about Purdue being a blue blood, but definitely Carolina and Kansas. But Purdue's been a successful program a lot. But think about that. 10 years. Kelvin Sampson's been in charge, men's hoops. And that's another example of what he and the program have accomplished. 10 years, Ron Hughey's been in charge of women's hoops at Houston. What is there to say? No trips to the NCAA tournament for women's hoops, which is supposed to be the standard. That means no Final Four, no Sweet 16, no Elite 8, none of that. 10 years. Both head coaches in charge. But more, Miss Wanda knows about this. I sent her the info earlier in the week. It's also a video on the Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. Info about the net quadrants for men's hoops, because a little bit different women's hoops. Men's basketball, quadrant 1. I'll go into this momentarily about how it pertains to the Cougars and their remaining schedule. These are the rankings. The net stands for NCAA Evaluation Tool. It's a metric that the committee uses, Men's Basketball Committee. And reminder, the committee will announce their top 16 seeds for men's basketball this Saturday at 11:30 a.m. Central Time before the Cougs host the Longhorns at 12 noon. Back to the quadrants. This is for your opponents. So Q1, opponent at home, the home game, 1-30. Neutral site, 1-50. Road game, 1-75. Q2, home game, ranking of 31-75. Neutral site, 51-100. Away, 76-135. Q3, on it goes. The Cougs, earlier in the week when I made this slide, made the video, the Cougs had 7 Q1 wins, quadrant 1 wins. They now have 8 again. Why do they have 8? What changed? Well, that beatdown Texas Tech had over Kansas on Monday vaulted Tech from 38 in the net Q2 to 25 in the net Q1. So the net rankings are fluid. They change daily based on who you play, your opponents, where you play them, and what your opponents do throughout the season. So I think Texas Tech beat Kansas by, what was it, 29, something like that? 79-50 was the final score, something like that. So they went from 38 to 25 in net. So that gave the Cougs their 8th Q1 victory. 7 games left, conference games, before the postseason begins. This Saturday's game against Texas, Longhorns are currently at 31. That's right at the beginning of Q2. Monday, look at this. Next 2 games for the Cougars. Saturday versus Texas. Monday versus Iowa State. I'm going to mention this here on this edition of Throwback Thursday, the Houston Roundball Review Takeover. It's not official. I'm not sure if it's going to become official. But I heard that the Cougs game against Iowa State, the tip-off time might change from 6 p.m. Central Time to 8 p.m. Central Time. Boy, that'd make a huge, huge difference for fans to get to the game and be in their seats by tip-off. Because it is extremely, extremely difficult for Coug fans, supporters, alums to be in their seats for a 6 o'clock start during the week because of traffic. Downtown, the area, it is a beast. It is damn near impossible to be there in your seat for tip-off of a 6 o'clock start. You know, it's a bad look for TV, and folks say, well, Coug fans aren't they don't support their school, they don't support their program, blah, 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 blah. You come live here in H-Town and work in the Woodlands or Katy or wherever and try to get through downtown and in your seat for a 6 o'clock start during the week. Come join us and do that. I don't live far from the arena, and it takes me a long time to get there. I've had colleagues who have to cover the game barely get to the game on time because of traffic. So if the tip-off time changes from 6 to 8, that's a huge, huge difference. I don't know if that impacts how it impacts Iowa State's flight plans, because, you know, I assume they charter. So if they charter, it should be good to go, and a later tip-off time should not hurt them too much. But I don't know about that. Like I said, I just received a little birdie told me like an hour ago, well, no, maybe almost 2 hours ago, that it was discussed possible that Monday's Houston, Iowa State tip time might change from 6 to 8. It's not confirmed. As far as I know, it hasn't been confirmed yet. It may not happen, but it's a possibility. That's all I'm saying in these closing moments of this edition of the Houston Roundball Review Takeover, powered by JM&E. The net rankings for the Big 12 men basketball teams as of yesterday, February 14th. Cougars number 1 in the net. Iowa State now 8 in the net. So think about that. That Monday matchup, and it'll change because obviously Houston plays the Longhorns on Saturday. Iowa State plays Texas Tech on Saturday. So the net rankings for both teams might change if they happen to lose. BYU 9, Baylor 12. The Cougars play at Baylor next Saturday. Kansas 14. Texas Tech 25. Texas 31. 6 of the 14 Big 12 men's hoops teams are ranked in the top 25 of the net. 3 in the top 9. Longhorns 31. Sooners 33. The Cougars play at Oklahoma in March. The Cougars host the Bearcats later on this season. TCU at 39. UCF 65. K-State 77. Oklahoma State 137. Probably going to be changing head coaches at the end of the season. West Virginia interim head coach probably going to do the same. I doubt if they make Coach Eilert remove the interim tag. But you see, that's the gauntlet of schedule for Big 12 men's basketball. Real quick, HCU schedule for men's and women's basketball. Men's hoops 6-17 overall, 4-8 in Southland Conference play. Women's basketball, Huskies finally got a win to move to 1-11, but then they lost by 27 the next game. Both teams are in action this Saturday on the 17th on the road at Southeastern. Women play on the 22nd, next Thursday against A&M Corpus Christi, and then both teams are in action on next Saturday, 24th, at home inside Sharp Gym against Northwestern State. Prairie View A&M and TSU, both teams, H-Town area teams, are home this weekend. PV men, 5-6 in SWAC, just like the PV women. PV hosting Southern first. Southern men are 9-2 in the SWAC. The Lady Jaguars are 7-4 in the SWAC. Grambling, 8-3, I believe. 8-3 for Grambling men and women. So the top tier, two of the top teams in SWAC play are coming to H-Town this weekend to face off against TSU and Prairie View. Game this Saturday and Monday. Rice men, 3-8. I believe Rice men have not won a conference game at home. The 3 wins in conference are on the road. Go figure that. Well, they're back on the road this weekend. At Tulsa on Saturday, 3-9 in conference play for the Golden Hurricane. Rice women, 9-4 in second place in the AAC. Second place, first year in the conference. Willie Gibson, Miss Juana, Tony M, first year in the conference. They're in second place. So it is possible to have success in your first year in a new conference in women's basketball. It is possible. I'm just saying, it is possible. TSU, the men host Grambling, men and women host Grambling this Saturday. Both games of doubleheader, Saturday and Monday, can be seen on TSU's athletics YouTube channel. Women 4-7 in SWAC, host Grambling, 3 o'clock inside H&P Arena, followed by the men. You see the records there. So it's a lot of action. Recapping it, the show, Caitlin Clark for Iowa should pass, become the all-time leading scorer, should pass Kelsey Plum tonight in Iowa's game against Michigan. Game is on Peacock, 7 o'clock, game on Peacock. Sold out crowd, thousands of fans will be there in Iowa watching that game. Well more than the 1,610 folks who watched the Houston Cougars women's basketball game against Texas Wednesday night. The Cougs lost 82-66 to fall to 3-10 in Big 12 play. However, Houston senior guard Laila Blair became the 9th player in Houston women's hoops history to score 1,500 points in her college career. So kudos to Laila on that accomplishment. The win for Texas was head coach Vic Schaefer's 400th win of his college coaching career. For those who don't know, Coach Schaefer is from Houston. Born here. HISD product. He told us last night, reminded us last night, he was the first head coach for boys high school at Millby High School for, I think, the freshman boys basketball team. He goes back a long way with ties to the city of Houston. His sister lives in the area, lives in Pearland. Coach Schaefer talked about, I'm going to post it after this show on my Instagram channel, Houston Roundball Review, how he grew up supporting, being a fan of Phi Slama Jama, and how much being in the building, because Fertitta Center really is just a renovated Hawthorne Pavilion. It's just shinier, better lighting, things like that. But the shell of the building is still Hawthorne's. So Longhorns head coach Vic Schaefer had some fond memories of the previous golden era of Houston Cougars men basketball with Phi Slama Jama. Now, Miss Wanda, Tony M, fans of the current golden era of Houston Cougars men's basketball are enjoying it, thanks to head coach Kelvin Sampson and his staff, who square off this Saturday, high noon on CBS against the Texas Longhorns. Reminder, before that tip-off, 11:30 Central Time, the NCAA Men's Basketball Committee will announce their top 16 seeds. As of right now, the chair of the Men's Basketball Committee this season is Dr. Charles McClellan, commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, the SWAC. I've known Dr. McClellan a long time, and hopefully try to line up an interview with him in the next few days if and when his schedule permits. But yes, tune in if you're not at the game at Fertitta Center. Tune in on CBS for the selection show for the top 16 reveal, and then watch the Cougars battle the Longhorns at high noon on CBS. As always, thank you, everybody, for watching the show. Thank you for your comments. From Will Knows, Willie Gibson, Miss Wanda, Polk, Tony M, everybody watching. Ben as well from Bs3, watching on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitch, on Fire TV, on Roku via Bs3 Network. I am, of course, KG Chris Gardner, owner of the Houston Roundball Review. Join me tonight, later on, 9 o'clock Central Time, on YouTube at Houston Roundball Review for the next edition of Let's Talk Houston Rockets. We're going to discuss the Rockets. They're now 24-30 as they head to the All-Star break. Spread the word about the Houston Roundball Review. Spread the word about these shows here on BS3. Buy you some merch. Support the Roundball Review. Get a mug. Get a cap. Get a hoodie. Get a tank top. Get a sweatshirt. Get a long sleeve shirt. Click on that shop button if you're watching on YouTube on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. Salute to everyone for your comments, taking time out during your lunch break to watch the show and participate in the show. I am KG Chris Gardner, owner of the Houston Roundball Review. Since 1994, the Houston Roundball Review. Local name, global perspective. Take care. Peace.